Children will be celebrating Dear Old Dad on Sunday, but what is one of the best gifts a father can give his son? We'd like to welcome back Raelene Weaver, licensed marriage and family therapist, TEDx speaker, and author of Let Boys Be Kids First. Glad to have you back.
It's so great to be with you, Layla.
Yeah, so the last time that you joined us, we were talking about emotional intelligence amongst boys and how to teach them empathy. So what are some of the gifts that dads can give their sons as we focus in on the emotional part of growing up?
I think by setting a really positive role model, I mean, boys adore their dads and they look to their dad, for guidance and they watch, how their dad interacts with people, how they manage their own emotions. And so the more that dads can do to just be honest and real, it's natural to get frustrated from time to time, but, take a breath, just kind of center. And I think it's really good for boys to see dads maybe do yoga
Oh,
or meditate or, something that's good for them.
yeah.
Dads do a lot for everyone else, and it's really important for dads to take care of themselves as well.
Yeah, because fathers, they believe that their charge is to raise boys to be men. And yes, that is true. But you say that there's a way of softening the edges while raising strong children to become strong
Oh,
adults.
you can be tough and tender. So that's part of something I always say. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And I like that you say that fathers need to be the example, and that is really important for any parent to be an example for their kids because they end up raising mini-me's, don't they?
They can't, right? I mean, we all grow up in a certain environment and that's what we know,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah. And you
yeah.
say praise the person and not the performance. What do you mean by that?
I think that's so important. In society, we tend to recognize boys for academic or athletic ability. And I really think it's important to include that emotional intelligence part that you just mentioned,
Mhm.
is that we want to raise boys that are kind, that are courageous, that are honest. So anytime a dad can see his son doing something that shows good character, it's like, Billy, thank you for helping your sister with her homework.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Or I see that you helped Mrs. Jones bring in her garbage can.
Mhm.
Boys really need to hear that, and we really need to start talking more about that.
And on the
It's not just athletics and academics.
right, and on the flip side of that coin is to discipline without shame. You want to, you know, tough love, they say. However, there's shame is something else. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, that's one of the most toxic emotions that anyone can feel, a child or an adult. And so if a child feels like their dad is saying that they're bad, that is just soul crushing because then the child feels like there's something wrong with them. They're not good enough to be loved. It's just, yeah, it's not good. And what goes in early goes in deep. And I
Hmm.
want parents to hear that.
Oh,
It
that is so
does.
true.
Yeah, those things can stick.
Yeah, absolutely. And to include your son in everyday connection. And what do you mean by that? I imagine, dads like to bring their sons along for activities or things like that. But when we're talking about connection or communication with others,
Yeah, I think it's that heart connection. I think when a dad can see, maybe the dad wants the greatest soccer player in the world, but their son is really great, at foreign language or whatever.
yeah.
So when the dad sees his son kind of light up, it's really following that and supporting that. So that's part of it. I think also with boys, they like to be included and they like to have someone ask, well, how do you feel about that? Or how can you help me with that? So it's a way to kind of not just lecture, but to kind of include. and to share things together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we just have a few seconds left before we need to take a break. But when you say to recognize and respond when your son is emotionally withdrawing, so, and we're seeing that a lot these days. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes it ends up very tragic. So when they're emotionally withdrawing, what should the father do?
Well, I think, it's the instinct to kind of jump in. And I think if dads can listen first and then fix later, it's like find out what's going on. What is going on with this depression or this irritability or this anger? If that goes on for more than 2 weeks, then they need to get some help.
Yeah, and to constantly engage as well. Don't let too much time go by. Just keep that engagement open and consistent. When we do need to take a break right now, but when we come back, I want to continue our conversation with Raelene on the special instinct only dads have. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Welcome back. We've been chatting with author, speaker, and licensed marriage and family therapist Raelene Weaver on the gifts dads can give their sons all year long. And before we took a break, we were talking about spotting the emotional withdrawal within our sons. Now, dads, they can spot the signs that others miss. So what are some of those signs that maybe speak to dads in particular?
Yeah, I think that because dads have grown up in a society that kind of expects them to tough it up, never show emotion, always have the answers, figure it out on your own. Some of that is good. We want resilient boys and we want resourceful boys. But if a dad is really seeing his son struggle, that's time to check in. Also with dads, they know developmental milestones. So they should know, you should be, kind of achieving these goals or hitting these milestones. And if that's not happening, dads instinctively can kind of step in and see if they can help with that.
Are you seeing a certain age group that's particularly affected these days? Because it sounds like, from what I've read, they're getting younger and younger children who are contemplating things like suicide, God forbid. But so maybe they're on the cusp of reaching puberty, or they're going through some hormonal changes. But why are we seeing the ages getting a little bit younger? Not just amongst boys, but amongst girls as well.
Right. I think tweens. Yeah, I think you hit on it. So they're getting close to those teen years, but they're sort of in that tween, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. I think the pandemic was really hard on kids because there was so much isolation. They didn't get to be with their friends, they didn't get to socialize. And then coupled that with all the screen time, all the social media, the video games. There's just so many mixed messages out there. And I think it's been hard for kids to kind of try to figure all that out.
Yeah. And what do you think is sort of a good advice for fathers to maybe remove their sons from the screens, to get back out into the outdoors or under the hood of a car? Everything's computerized nowadays, but there are still things that the dads and sons can share together.
No, I love that. Exactly. And I think that boys want that so much. So what I want dads to know is that when they're with their boys, to be fully present as much as possible. Like you said, Layla, everybody's on their phones, it's a
Yeah.
very busy society. But if they can just put that aside and just be with their son, it doesn't matter really what you're doing. If sports is it, that's great. I love being outside. I think you get the benefit of exercise, nature, all the things around you, and you're creating that bond.
Sure.
So, I think really noticing what your son, it's like love the boy you have. It's just he can be quirky, silly, whatever, but love the boy you have. He's
I love
special.
I love that. Indeed, they all are very special. And finally, so we're talking about what dads can do for their sons, but Father's Day is around the corner. So what do you think is something nice that a son can do for his dad?
I know, I was giving some thought to that, Layla, because it's like Mother's Day, flowers, perfume,
Right,
whatever.
right.
With dad, it's more like tools, gadgets, sports equipment,
Exactly.
I don't know, his favorite meal, fixing him that. I
Yeah.
really think, again, it's that heart connection.
Yes.
So if a boy feels comfortable making a card or drawing something or whatever, do that. That's unique. Again, that's special. And that's something that your dad, can always have. But yeah, whatever your dad likes, try to, give him something in that direction. Or I was thinking a gift certificate at Target.
There you go.
Let Dad get what he wants.
Sure, why not? Well, or just to say, Dad, you work really hard. Thank you for all of your sacrifices. Just sometimes those simple words, they can go a long way.
Absolutely. And a lot of times with older men, that's one of the things that they regret is not telling their dad that they love them as much, or vice versa.
Yes.
So it's like, tell your dad you love him, and dad, tell your son you love him.
That's a perfect note to end on. Raelene Weaver, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you, Leyla. It's been fun.
And happy Father's Day, everyone. We're back after this.